Ready?
We're always ready.
The Assembly is now in session. Assembly Member Cook notices the absence of a quorum. The sergeants at arms will prepare the chamber and bring in the absent members. The clerk will call the roll.
Adams, Amiano, Anderson, Arambula, Bass, Bell, Bill Berryhill, Tom Berryhill, Blakesley, Block, Blumenfield, Bradford, Brownlee, Buchanan, Caballero, Calderon, Carter, Chesbro, Conway, Cook, Cotto, Davis, De La Torre, De Leon, DeVore, Ing, Evans, Fuhr, Fletcher, Fong, Fuentes, Fuller, Furutani, Gaines, Galgiani, Garrick, Gatto, Gilmore, Hagman, Hall, Harkey, Hayashi, Hernandez, Hill, Huber, Huffman, Jeffries, Jones, Knight, Liu, Logue, Lowenthal, Ma, Mendoza, Miller, Monning, Nava, Nastande, Nilo, Nielsen, Norby, V. Manuel Perez, Portantino, Ruskin, Solis, Saldana, Silva, Skinner, Smythe, Solorio, Strickland, Swanson, Torlixon, Torres, Tarico, Tran, Valines, Yamada, Mr. Speaker.
A quorum is present. We ask our guests and visitors in the rear of the chamber and in the gallery to please stand for the prayer. We ask our Assembly Chaplain, Father Constantine Papadimos, to offer the day's prayer.
Good morning. Let us pray. Lord, we are surrounded by people all the time, yet we still can feel disconnected. Distractions can pull us apart when we should be walking in a spirit of unity. Lord, show us how to get the most out of life by not taking our relationships for granted. Guide us to spend more time with our family and those whom we love. For when we walk and live in a spirit of unity, we bless you and we open the door for your blessings in return. Amen.
We ask our guests and visitors to remain standing. We ask Assembly Member Gatto to lead us in today's pledge. Mr. Gatto. You may be seated. Reading of the previous day's journal.
Assembly Chamber, Sacramento, Monday, June 21st, 2010. Assembly met at 12 noon. Honorable Fiona, Speaker Toa Tim of the Assembly presiding. Chief Clerk E. Dawson Wilson at the desk. Assistant Clerk Timothy Moreland reading. The roll was called.
Mr. Calderon moves. Mr. Hagman seconds that the reading of the previous day's journal be dispensed with. Presentations of petitions, there are none. Introduction and reference of bills will be deferred. Reports of committees will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Messages from the Governor, there are none. Messages from the Senate, there are none. Motions and resolutions. The absences for the day will be deemed read and printed in the journal. Mr. Calderon, you are recognized.
Yes, Madam Speaker, members, I request unanimous consent for Assembly members Bass, Swanson, and Furtani to have guests and photographers on the floor today.
Without objection.
Also, I request unanimous consent for Assembly member Huber to have her son Riley join her at her desk today.
Without objection.
Also, request unanimous consent to allow Assembly member V. Manuel Perez to speak on Adjourn in Memory today.
Without objection.
Also request unanimous consent to withdraw SB 1464 by Mr. Simitian from the Appropriations Committee and order the bill to second reading and then to the first day consent calendar as it is no longer a fiscal bill.
Without objection.
Also request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 56 so the Agriculture Committee can notice SB 25 by Mr. Padilla for hearing on Wednesday, June 30, 2010 at 1:30 p.m. in room 126, pending referral from the Natural Resources Committee.
Without objection.
In addition, I request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 56 so the Local Government Committee can notice SB 1340 by Ms. Kehoe for hearing on Wednesday, June 30th of this year at 1:30 p.m. in room 447, pending referral from the Transportation Committee.
Without objection.
Also, removal from the consent calendar at the request of Mr. Hagman to remove file item 79, SCR 93 by Desaulnier.
Is that file item 105?
To remove from the consent calendar?
Is it file item 105?
79, file item 79.
I think it's file item 105. Clerk will note.
What is that? I don't have that file number. Let's...
SCR 93 is file item 105.
All right, remove SCR 93 file item 105 from the consent calendar at the request of Mr. Hagman.
Clerk will note.
And then move to the inactive file item number 40, SB 253 by Mr. Whalen at the request of the author.
Clerk will note. And pursuant to Assembly Rule 77.2, I am referring the following bills to committee. File item 92, SB 211, submitting to the Elections and Redistricting Committee. Members, we have some guests with us here in the chamber. We'd like to recognize Mr. Furatani to welcome his guests to the chamber today. We'd like to welcome members of the Japanese Chamber of Commerce of Northern California and the Japanese Business Association of Southern California to our chambers here today. Welcome. Members, after our second set of guests, we are going to move on to business on the daily file. So those members who are not down here on the floor, if you could please come down on the floor. We're going to start with business on the daily file in about 5 minutes. Mr. Calderon, you are recognized.
Is it okay?
Hey, Dodds.
Speaker.
Mr. Calderon.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, request unanimous consent to move file item 90, SCR 101, from to re-refer it back to Rules Committee.
Without objection. Members, we would like to ask you to focus your attention on Ms. Bass's seat in the back. Assembly Member Mike Davis will welcome representatives of the Black Stuntmen's Association and the Coalition of Black Stuntmen and Stuntwomen. Mr. Davis.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker and members of this august body. On behalf of the Legislative Black Caucus, we're here to honor the pioneering women and men who founded the Black Stuntmen's Association in Los Angeles, California back in 1967 to combat racial discrimination and to create equal opportunities for all people of color in the motion pictures and television stunt industry. I would like to recognize the Coalition of Black Stuntmen and Women, and of course it was established as an organization in 1973 formally. Up until the 60s, white men and women only were used to work as stunt doubles for people of color by darkening their faces with makeup. People of color were not provided these opportunities due to lingering racism and in the motion picture industry. As African Americans earned more roles in Hollywood, the Black Stuntmen's Association was formed. They used the justice system to bring additional diversity to motion picture and television industry and continued to monitor compliance with the resulting agreements. Their efforts paved the way for increased participation by people of color in all aspects of the motion picture and television industry, both in front and behind the cameras. I would also like to give special recognition to two founding members of the Black Stuntmen's Association who've passed away. They are Eddie Smith, who I knew, and also S.J. McGee, who was the founding treasurer. We thank you for this recognition before the legislature and ask that you come to the Willie Brown Room following the ceremony to meet the stuntmen for photos. And as the chair of the Entertainment and Sports Committee, I'd have to say that we're very honored to have this recognition today. Thank you so very much.
Okay, members, we're going to go to business on the daily file. Second reading, the clerk will read.
Senate Bill 624, 944, 1473, 1191, 1256, 220 with amendments, 1203, 1342, 1434 with amendments, 1338, 840 with amendments, 1080, 1115, 1449, 414, 1139, 1479, 1075 with amendments, 82, 330, 1382, 798 with amendments, 1402 with amendments, and Senate Bill 1007 with amendments.
All bills will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Okay, Assembly, third reading. File item 37, AJR 42. Clerk will read.
Assembly Joint Resolution 42 by Assemblymember Solorio relative to Medicare Secondary Prayer Enhancement Act of 2010.
Mr. Solorio, on AJR 42, please.
Temporarily pass.
Pass temporarily. We're going to Senate third reading. File item 41, SB 535 on the amendments. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 535 with amendments by Assemblymember Ng.
Mr. Ng.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. On the amendments, SB 535's amendments are intended to allow advanced technology vehicles mandated under the state's zero emissions regulations to enjoy the benefits of access to HOV lanes as a means to encourage consumer acceptance in their choice to embrace these technologies. Respectfully request an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, and without objection, we will take a voice vote on the amendments. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted, out to print, and back on file. File item 42, SB 769 on the amendments. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 769 with amendments by Assemblymember Monning.
Mr. Monning. Attention, members.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, SB 769 will clarify how federal funding for emergency preparedness is disseminated at the state and local level. SB 769 ensures that local health departments receive at least 70% of any public health emergency preparedness funds released by the federal government. The technical amendments I'm presenting today were requested by the administration and will extend the sunset date on provisions that give the Department of Public Health the authority to allocate federal emergency preparedness funds. I urge your aye vote on these amendments and would ask for the bill to go out to print and be placed back on file.
Seeing no further questions or debate, without objection, we will take a voice vote on the amendments. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted, out to print, and back on file. We're going to go back to file item 37, AJR 42. Clerk will read.
Assembly Joint Resolution 42 by Assemblymember Solorio relative to Medicare Secondary Payer Enhancement Act of 2010.
Mr. Solorio.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AJR 42 expresses the support of the California Legislature for U.S. House Resolution 4796, the Medicare Secondary Payer Enhancement Act. In any personal injury or workers' compensation case involving substantial injuries, there's a chance that Medicare will have a future obligation for that injured person, even if that person is currently not receiving Medicare benefits. As a result, Medicare makes a claim in all these cases. Unfortunately, though, the process Medicare uses to determine whether it is entitled to participate in the settlement of the case and how much it is entitled to receive is slow, inefficient, and consistent. H.R. 4796 would bring certainty to the determination of amounts owed to Medicare, resolve these obligations more promptly, and result in quicker and more efficient reimbursement to the Medicare trust. This resolution has broad bipartisan support in Congress. This AGR acknowledges the key role that the California delegation plays in Congress. This AJR is supported by a broad coalition including the Consumer Attorneys of California, the California Chamber of Commerce, the California Applicant Attorneys Association, Small Business California, just to name a few. I would ask that the first roll call be for co-authors for this important resolution. I do know that there's support on both sides for this resolution, and I also ask for your aye vote on the measure in chief. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Solorio is asking for the first roll to be open for co-authors. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. This is for co-authors on this AJR. Clerk will note that there are 48 co-authors. This is an AJR. It requires a roll call vote. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 56, no 0. Measure passes. File item 70, SB 1229. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 1229 by Senator Denham, an act relating to vehicles.
Mr. Nielsen.
Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the Assembly, this bill simply adds ATVs to the list of vehicles characterized as implements of husbandry. Implements of husbandry can be incidentally driven on highways and streets for agricultural husbandry purposes. There's a gray area in the law, and this simply clarifies that gray area. This bill designating ATVs as implements of husbandry has received no votes throughout the process, and I would urge your no vote or your aye vote today.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 54, no 0. Measure passes. File item 71, SB 650. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 650 by Senator Yee, an act relating to improper governmental activities.
Ms. Yamada.
Thank you. Madam Speaker and members, I am presenting SB 650 on behalf of Senator Yee, which would simply extend the same whistleblower protections to employees of the UC system as are afforded to all other university employees and state employees. This bill did pass off the floor last year. It is the same, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote and hope that the governor will see fit to sign this year. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Ms. Yamada moves the call. File item 75, SB 1279. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 1279 by Senator Pavley, an act relating to sexually exploited minors.
Mr. Swanson.
Madam Speaker and members, I'm proud to be the floor manager of SB 1279 on behalf of Senator Pavley. SB 1279 would allow the Los Angeles County District Attorney to establish a pilot project to help juvenile victims of commercially exploitation if the local authority provides funds or federal funds are available. We've amended the bill to include a general reporting requirement to the pilot project if the district attorney office established the project. This project is very similar to a project that we have formed in Alameda County that has been very successful. Children who have been victims of human trafficking need the same services as children that have been victims of child abuse and molestation. We passed off this floor, and the governor signed into law AB 17, which talks about which it makes profiteering and human trafficking of minors an increased penalty crime, where we take the assets of those profiteers and make sure that those are providing for services for the victims of this crime. SB 1279 will take our state closer toward combating one of the most serious epidemics threatening our youth, the crime of sexual exploitation of minors. I urge us to pass an aye vote on this very, very important motion and help us rescue our children, and I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Gaines.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker, and members. Question, if I could.
Without objection.
Of the author, because we've got a notation here that indicates that the pilot program is not going to report back to the legislature. So I'm just wondering, is that accurate information or?
Mr. Swanson?
Yes, we amended the bill this week to include a reporting requirement.
Okay, wonderful. I support it. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 57, no 0. Measure passes. File item 80, SB 797 on the amendments. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 797 with amendments by Assemblymember Bradford.
Mr. Bradford, on the amendments, file item 80.
Madam Speaker, the amendments for SB 796. SB 796 is a measure to restrict bisphenol A, better known as BPA, from specific children's feeding products. The Assembly amends the delay of the timelines of the bill and would ban BPA in bottles, cups, jars by January 2012. BPA and all infant formulas, both liquid and powder, would be banned by July 2012. The measure is still fully integrated with the green chemistries process and gives the Department of Toxic Substance Control full and ultimate authority to take the actions on BPA before and after the bill's provisions go into effect. I urge the support of these amendments.
Seeing and hearing no questions or debate, and without objection, we'll take a voice vote on the amendments. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted, out to print and back on file. File item 81, SB 660 on the amendments. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 660 with amendments by Assemblymember Fuhr.
Mr. Fuhr.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. So these are amendments to a bill that pertains to reverse mortgages that can be sold to senior citizens. This is a bill that passed off our floor last year. The amendments are before us to do two things. First, they add a definition of honesty, good faith, and fair dealing to the statute. And secondly, they delete provisions that were contained in my bill, AB 329, which passed and was signed by the governor last year. On behalf of Ms. Woke, I urge an aye vote on the amendments.
Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, we oppose these amendments. Respectfully ask for a roll call vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Hagman asks for a roll call vote. Clerk will open the roll. Mr. Calderon asks for an aye vote. Mr. Hagman asks for a no vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 37, noes 24. Amendments are adopted, out to print and back on file. File item 84, SB 878. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 878 by Senator Liu, an act relating to local government.
Mr. Calderon.
Yes, Madam Speaker, with respect to SB 660, I request unanimous consent to refer file 660 to the Rules Committee pursuant to Assembly Rule 97.
Without objection. Okay, we're going to pass temporarily on file item 84. File item 85, SB 1023. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 1023 by Senator Wiggins, an act relating to local government.
Ms. Evans.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, SB 1023 creates a voluntary, streamlined process to convert small and outdated resort improvement districts and municipal improvement districts into community service districts. It's sponsored by Napa County. It reduces bureaucratic red tape for officials that want to do the right thing and bring their districts up to date. There have been no votes against the bill, and I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 58, no 0. Measure passes. File item 92, SB 211 on the amendments. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 211 with amendments by Assemblymember Fong.
Mr. Fong.
Madam Speaker, members, amendments to SB 211 will conform state law to federal law regarding the procedures and timelines for holding elections to fill vacancies in the House of Representatives. I ask that these amendments be adopted and the bill go out to print and back on file.
Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll try again. Request a roll call vote.
Mr. Hagman requests a roll call vote on these amendments. Mr. Calderon asks for an aye vote. Mr. Hagman asks for a no vote. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Calderon asks for an aye vote. Mr. Hagman asks for a no vote on these amendments. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 37, noes 25. The amendments are adopted, out to print and back on file. Pursuant to Assembly Rule 77.2, I am referring the following bills to committee. File Item 92, SB 211, submitting to the Elections and Redistricting Committee. Members, that's all I have on the daily file today. We have one measure on call. I'm going to go to the consent calendar. If any members have bills that they would like to take up today, please bring them up to the sergeant. Okay, file item 84, SB 878. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 878 by Senator Lewin, Act relating to local government.
Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 878, recording fees, Los Angeles County. This bill, SB 878, is a district bill to help prevent property sale fraud and protection, to prevent sale fraud and to protect homeowners and renters in Los Angeles County. It's sponsored by the Board of Supervisors of Los Angeles, and it has extensive support from consumer groups and law enforcement. There is no opposition. When the county records a notice of default or notice of sale for a home, the property residents will receive a timely notice in the mail. Residents will know that a home is being sold, foreclosed on, or is possibly involved in a fraudulent transaction. The home foreclosure crisis has created opportunities for more fraud, as well as suddenly displacing renters who had no idea that the home that they occupy was in foreclosure. A county real estate fraud predatory lending task force last year made a series of recommendations, including this legislative proposal. Default notices led and filed by the county increased from 21,000 in 2003 to nearly 106,000 in 2009. This legislation builds upon successful fraud-preventing statutes already adopted by Los Angeles County wherever a property deed has changed. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 15. Measure passes. Without objection, I'm going to request unanimous consent to suspend the file notice requirements to allow the Utility and Commerce Committee to hear SB 947 Leno on Monday, June 28, 2010 at 3 p.m. in room 437. Okay, members, we're ready to lift the call on file item 71, SB 650. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 44, noes 23. Measure passes. Consent calendar. We are at the second day consent calendar. Does any member wish to remove an item from the second day consent calendar? Seeing and hearing none, the clerk will read.
Assembly concurrent resolution 169 by Assemblymember Carter relative to Hearing Aid Awareness Month.
Clerk will open the roll on the consent calendar. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. On the consent calendar, all members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 68, no 0 on the consent calendar.
Senate Bill 902.
Aye 68, no 0.
Senate Bill 1042.
Aye 68, no 0.
And Senate Bill 1458 with urge.
Aye 68, no 0 on the urgency. Aye 68, no 0 on the measure. The consent calendar is adopted. This concludes the business on the daily file. All other items remaining will be passed and retained. All motions shall be continued. We will now move to adjourn in memories. The following members were previously granted permission to adjourn in memory today. Mr. V. Manuel Perez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise to adjourn in memory of Mr. Bob Thomas, a longtime resident of the city of Palm Springs in my district and who died earlier this month at the age of 66. Mr. Thomas was a devoted husband and beloved brother, uncle, friend, nephew, son, and cousin. Mr. Thomas was a highly accomplished real estate expert, lifelong champion of progressive causes, and committed fighter for gay rights. Mr. Thomas's many impressive accomplishments during his 40-year real estate career included serving as regional director for both Century 21 of the Pacific and RE/MAX, and earning the National Association of Realtors Distinguished Certified Commercial Investment Member designation. In addition to his work in the field of real estate, Mr. Thomas was active politically and philanthropically. He helped found the Palm Springs Democratic Club, as well as the Marriage Equality Coalition. He also volunteered for and was a member of the Riverside County Democratic Party, Desert Stonewall Democrats, and the organization Caring for Babies with AIDS. His civic engagement left a deep imprint on the city that he lived in, as well as the greater Coachella Valley region. Whether you sit on the left or right of the proverbial aisle, I know we can all learn from community members like Mr. Thomas who commit their time and energy to causes they believe in. Bob is survived by his husband, Tony Thomas, as well as many family members and friends who will miss him dearly. I ask that you adjourn in his memory.
Please bring Mr. Thomas's name to the desk to be printed in the journal. Session schedule. Today is the last day for a legislative measure to qualify for the November 2nd general election ballot. Friday, June 25th, no floor session, no check-in session. Monday, June 28th, floor session at 12 noon. I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Calderon moves. Mr. Garrick seconds. That this House stands adjourned until Monday, June 28th at 12 noon. Quorum call is lifted.